Hi there, it's Ruth here from Artful Yarn and welcome to my first tutorial of how to make my basic hand warmers. So you can adapt the size of the hand warmer depending obviously how big or small your hands are, and the way I do that is by increasing the size of the wrist and also adding either extra rows at this point here or extra rows here, or by changing the size of hook and the type of yarn I'm using. Now my hand is what I would class a kind of small to medium hand size, and so I'm going to be making the hand warmers in this demonstration to that hand size, but I will also explain along the way how to make adjustments. So to start off with, we're going to be making the wrist section or the cuff section, and we do that by chaining and just doing trebles or doubles if you're in the US, backwards and forwards. So to start off with, I make a slip knot, and you take the tail in your left hand, the yarn in the right, go make a loop right over left, and then pull the yarn through the hole that you've just made and just pull like so. Then put the yarn over your hook, and we're going to chain 10 chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then treble or double, that's US terms, into the third chain from the hook. So there's chain 1, chain 2, chain 3, and into the top of there. Now make sure that the 2 strands are over the top of your hook when you do this. I'll do a few more and show you a bit more closely how that looks. So another. So in the UK we call these trebles, and in the US they call them doubles. And as you can see, I've got 1 strand underneath each of those stitches, and try not to split the yarn doing that, and keep the 2 other strands above the hook as you go in. If you find that your crochet hook is not easily going through, you may want to consider a different brand of hook. I particularly like this one because it's got a nice point on it, but it also is smooth. I prefer metal hooks to bamboo or plastic, as I find that the yarn slips through them very nicely. So I should have 9 stitches. I'm counting the first group of chains as the first stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 stitches. Then chain 2, turn the work, and then treble into. Now I would go into that first stitch that's right at the bottom there of the chain, and now we're going to treble 8 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 2 chain. And then I always like to count, even though I kind of know what I'm doing, I still like to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 stitches. Oops, and then turn the work. Now incidentally, I'm using a 4.5mm crochet hook today, and as I said earlier, if you want to increase the size of your hand warmer that you're making, then increase the size of the hook first before trying to add any additional rows. It's amazing what a different size hook will do to the tension and size of your work. So I forgot to say I did 2 chain right at the beginning and then 8 trebles down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'm going to carry on crocheting until I have 12 rows. So in order not to bore you too much, I'm not going to describe every single stitch. So if you want to forward this section, please feel free to do so. But I'm going to film this in real time so that you get a sense of how long it would actually take to make one of these. So a little bit about myself. I've been crocheting since I was 9 years old. My mother taught me to knit when I was 6 years old, and at the time we were living in Nigeria. My parents were missionaries. My mother was one of 8. She was the eldest of 8, and she self-taught from books. She learnt how to knit, to crochet, and to do tatting, all from books. And she then taught me and my sisters. I have 2 sisters. So feel free to leave a message for me at the bottom of this video, or to contact me via my email, ruthtrice@gmail.com, for any questions that you may have about this pattern. Now, as I said earlier, typically I use 2 strands of DK to do this because I have really fallen in love with blending my own yarn, a bit like how a painter will mix colours to create their own unique creation. I like to mix yarn, and sometimes that's purely or has come about because of frugal reasons. I have what I have and just wanted to create something interesting. It all started when I wanted to make some granny square blankets, and I wanted an ombre effect. But of course, yarn doesn't change colour at the point you want it to change unless you're going to attach a new strand. So I discovered that by crocheting with 3 strands and dropping and adding a strand for every row, you could create a really beautiful ombre effect. And I've been doing that for many years now, and have moved on to not just granny square blankets, but doing the granny chevron blanket, and then also using that way of mixing colour for my hand warmers. So typically I make these to give away. I have sold a few in the past, but more recently I've decided that I'd really like to share this pattern with the world. I find it a very simple pattern and a really easy one to adapt. And later on I hope to share with you how to do the colour mixing and to create stripes and added decoration with flowers and leaves. I've recently been experimenting with sewing onto my crocheted creations afterwards to create leaves, and I've really been enjoying those results. So let's just count where we're at now. So I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rows and a bit. So I'd love to hear from you and your crochet journey. Please do leave a comment in the description below. So that's 10 rows there. Last row. So you can change colours once you get to the end of this if you would like, but to keep it simple I'm just going to carry on using this same gorgeous red. It's very rich, be lovely for winter. So there you have it, my 12 rows. So just double check again, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 stitches there. So to create the wrist, I'm just going to have the end of my crochet ahead of me like so, with the tail on the left hand side, and then I'm going to fold over my work and I'm going to slip stitch up the row of the front and the back section. So I usually do this in each stitch in kind of 2 sections, as you'll see. So I put my hook into the first stitch there and then pick up what should be a really clear stitch, because right at the beginning I said to make sure that you had these stitches easy to see, and you put your hook in through there, pull through the yarn. Now I sometimes find it a bit tricky to pull it through the yarn and through the stitch at the same time, so I stagger it. I pull it through, then pull the stitch through. I'll do that again. Through there, pull through, and then I usually move my thumb and finger just to help manipulate that stitch more easily. So through there, pull through, and then through there, because I find that you almost need to change the direction in which you're moving the hook. So front to back to get that stitch through, but then to pull it through here, I'm almost pulling to the back of the work. Be careful not to split your yarn like I just did. So through, pull and pull. Now this technique I developed for making these because I really hate sewing in ends and the less ends I can have at the end of a project, the happier I am. So this way of connecting two edges I just love. So when you get to the end, you just hold your work with the loop facing you and turn the work inside out, so from top to bottom, and there you have your cuff there. Now if you're making these for yourself, you may want to just check that this will go over your wrist, or whoever it is that you're making them for. Now they are meant to be tight as they come over the wrist, over the wrist, the fist section of your hand, but then should sit quite comfortably at the wrist, but will stretch to come off, and that's a good size. If it comes over your wrist too easily, you may need to consider using a slightly smaller hook and making it tighter. If it's really hard to pull over, then use a bigger hook size. Right, so we have that loop then still there. We've got the end yarn that we're just going to pop down through there because we don't really need to use that right now. And to do the next section, the first thing you need to do is find the top stitch of each of the rows. So that's what we're going to be crocheting into. So I think that was a chain. Actually, they probably all are either chains or end trebles. So at the top of each of these rows, and you can see the row formation there. At the top of those, we're going to put a slip stitch to start off with. So just slip stitch into the first, oh, getting caught, first one there, and pull through. And this is where I create what's called a faux first treble. So typically you would do 2 chain at this point, but I like to do something different. I pull the loop slightly larger, hold with my finger on the top of the loop, hold that really steady, twist my hook underneath and go into where I need to create the stitch, pull the loop through, and so thereby I have my 3 stitches on there, but don't let go at that point. Pull through 2, pull through 2 to create treble in the UK or double in the US, and then you can carry on and do a second treble into that space. And what we're going to do is do 2 trebles or doubles into the top of each row, straight through the hole that was created by the gap in the stitches. So 2 there. It's always good to unravel enough yarn so that you're not in tension with the ball. So 2, 2, 2, and 2 in there. And this is really easy. You can kind of just feel your way around if you have to. If you're a new crocheter, if you're a beginner crocheter and you find that I'm going too fast, please feel free to use the pause button or even slow me down to 0.75 speed. Sorry, I'm a paper crafter as well, and there's paper craft things around me. I keep flicking onto my desk. Okay, so in total you should have 24 stitches, 2 in each of the 12 rows. So when you get to here, you should be able to see very clearly the stitches that you need to go through to close that row. So through the top of there, through the top of there, pull the yarn through and pull the yarn through to make a slip stitch. So we're going to start row 2 of the hand section, and again we're going to do that faux treble or faux double, twist and in and pull out, and then through 2, through 2. Just split it. Ooh, there we go. So that's the first treble or double that sits on top of that stitch there. We're going to do 1 stitch into each of the stitches, apart from every 2 singular stitches we're going to do 2 into 1 stitch. So I'll explain that as I go along. So it's 1, 1, 2 in 1, then 1, 1, 2 in this one, 1, 1, 2 in this one, 1, 1, 2. And you just keep repeating that. 1, 1, 2, until we get pretty much to the end of the round. So at this point here, you'll see that you could do 1, 1 and then 2 in here, but in actual fact just do singular stitches right to the end, and I'll explain why this is in this pattern. So every time you do 2 stitches into 1 stitch, you're basically increasing the size of whatever it is that you're making. And so this area here where the seam is going to be on the inside of the hand, and so I don't mind just having a slightly flatter section here to go into the hand, and then all the increasing happening all the way around the hand like so. So that's why we don't do that extra increase there. So what you should see when you look at this is that you'll have 2 in 1 stitch there and 2 in 1 stitch there, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 single stitches across like so. So in total now you should have 31 stitches. So I finished that row by slip stitching into the top of that stitch as before, and again we're pulling that a little bigger, wrapping it round and doing a slip stitch and doing the treble or double. And then for this next round it's just a singular stitch in every single one. I love wearing hand warmers. They are my go-to during winter time. When it gets too cold though and I need to have my gloves on, I tend to wear my hand warmers over my gloves, so I've got a decorative element over my boring gloves. But I also like to wear them in the house so that my fingers are warm as I do things. And I love creating things that are both useful and beautiful at the same time. And when it comes to gift giving, it's always nice to have a new pair of something on your hands for Christmas. Sorry, that was my door then. My daughter was checking in on me. So we're nearly at the end here, and I will do a stitch count just because it's good practice to do that. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 31. Oh, there's 32. There should not be 32. Did I just count that wrong? I'll do it again and come back to you. I know where I've gone wrong. I put 2 stitches in there when it should have only been 1. So I'm going to just redo that row and come back to you. See, I told you had to count. It is so worth counting at the end of every row just to make sure that you have the right amount of stitches. And so by counting at the end of each row, it means that you're not doing loads of work and then having to unravel it later on. So now I do have 31 stitches, and again going to do the larger loop, yarn over, through to create that first treble or double. And because we're going to start off by making this for the right hand, you're then going to do 20 stitches in total. So you do your first yarn over and then 19 more stitches. Four, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18, 19 and 20. So then at this point we're going to skip some stitches, so you need to count 6, not including the one that you've just done. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then crochet into the 7th one. Now if you're making these for yourself or somebody who perhaps has quite a large thumb joint or just a large thumb, and you try it on and it's a bit tight, then skip another space and have 7 stitches in between. So then you should do 5 more stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get to the end of that row, and then again slip stitch into the top of that faux treble at the beginning. So as I said, give them a little test to make sure that it feels comfortable. There should be lots of space there for your thumb to wiggle. And then it's at this point you need to decide how far up you want to have your hand warmers. So some people like to have it quite sort of close and just leave all their fingers free, whereas some people like to have it further up and over their fingers a bit more. So you could add on 2 additional rows or 3 or 4 depending what you would prefer to do. Now if you were creating these for a child or someone with really quite small hands and the measurement from their wrist to their thumb was quite small, then I would not do row 3. I would miss out row 3 and go straight into the thumb decrease row that I've just done much sooner. And then also when it comes to doing the rows after the thumb hole, just do less of those. Or should I say fewer? Oh, I'm going to spark an internet debate now. Is it less or fewer? I had a friend who would correct me all the time. I mean, are there circumstances you could use both terms? I don't know. Answers on a postcard, please. Or just comment below. So we should have now 25 stitches to crochet into. So I will do another count. As I said, it's important to count at the end of every row. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 2, 4, 5. Yes. So on to the final row. Now if you're making this for the left hand, I'll tell you what you have to change. So rather than crocheting 20 and then doing the thumb hole sort of gap, crochet 5, then do the gap, then crochet 20. So I'll say that again. For the right hand side, you crochet 20, then gap of 6, then 5 stitches. But for the left hand, crochet 5, then a gap, and then crochet 20. So you're just putting the gap in a different part of the piece, and that way you always have the seam on the inside of the wrist. So coming to the end now, and we're just going to do a final slip stitch into the top there. Pull that through, cut the yarn, and pull that through. Pull that through tight, and then stitch in your yarn ends. I'll just hide those for a second so I can show you that they do fit. And there you have my basic hand warmer pattern. So thank you so much for joining me. Hope you enjoy crocheting this up, and do let me know if you have any questions about how to adapt the sizing, or if you have any questions at all. Take care for now. Bye bye.